recording, and everything has begun now. Oh, who have we lost? Right when I got back. Everybody hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, here we go. I'm pressing the big start button.
Let's get into it.
Do I look in the chat while we do this,
You're
or
going to look at my screen for the question, and then your screen is going to be where you press the answer. So on my screen, it's going to show the question. This is a double point first question. Who does Justin address his letter to? Is it to the Senate, to the emperor's adopted son, or all of these? Who does Justin address his letter to?
oh, it's not going to let me click it? Oh, never mind.
You got it. Some people are still taking some time, and that's good. It's good to take your time. Better to get fewer points and click the right one. And of course, it is actually all of these guys. It is addressed to the Senate and the emperor and the emperor's adopted son. And I feel like wasn't it even somebody else? I don't remember. It's a lot of people.
Yes.
All right, let's see what the leaderboard's looking like. 4 people got that one right. Congratulations. You got the double points. All right, next question.
I did click on that one. It didn't register for some reason.
I see. Justin calls the addressees of his letter all these except which one? Pious, lovers of learning, the council of philosophers, or guardians of justice. Which of these does he not call them? And don't worry, Ben, you don't have to take it too seriously. Some of these guys are very competitive, but just let me know if it messes with you again on this one. Which of these does he not use? And he does not call them the council of philosophers, but he does call them pious, lovers of learning, and guardians of justice. I think he's calling them what they want to think of themselves as, kind of like when Paul does at the beginning of Romans. Calls them guides of the blind and things like that. All right. Next question. Justin says that a true philosopher should only follow what is pleasing to his soul, in agreement with tradition, pleasing to your parents, or in line with the truth. What should the true philosopher always follow, according to Justin? What is pleasing to his soul, or in agreement with tradition, or pleasing to his parents? And that wasn't a hard one. You guys all got that one. It's what's in line with the truth. All right, whoever this Calais Symphonia is, you're rising to the top. Next question. What reason does Justin not give for why the Christians are not treated justly? Is it that the judges are flattered by prejudice, or the Christians are poor and can't bribe judges, or that the judges have a desire of pleasing superstitious men, or that the judges are induced by evil rumors? Which of these is not one of the reasons Justin gives for why they are treating Christians so poorly? And it is that the Christians are poor and can't bribe the judges. He does name the other 3, though. Most of you guys are getting these. Very impressive. I don't consider these easy questions. Aramis calls this an easy quiz. This is not an easy quiz, Aramis. Very, very specific things you're asking them to recall.
It's super easy.
Yeah. All right, next question. True or false? This is a double points question. Justin was known for this statement. Unless both rulers and ruled philosophize, it is impossible to make states blessed. Was this a statement that Justin Martyr was known for? Unless both rulers and the ruled philosophize, it's impossible to make states blessed. Yes, that wasn't a quote from Justin. Justin says another philosopher says this, guys. I mean, he said it in the letter, but yeah, I even worded it to make sure you understand. It's somebody else saying it. But it's a good statement, isn't it? Most of you guys got that. It was not Justin who coined that adage. And the next question, true or false? Justin says it is unjust to punish or reward anyone just because of their name. Did Justin say that it's unjust to punish or reward anyone just because of their name? That was too easy, Hermes. You fluctuate between easy and hard questions. All right, everybody, next question. Justin says that the Romans do what to those who insult the gods through speech? Is it that they give them rewards, torture and kill them, exile and shun them, or make statues of them? What does Justin say the Romans do to people who insult the gods through their speech? And he does say they give them rewards. Well, in this section, if I remember correctly, he's just talking about how insulting all these stories are about the gods. And he says, and you guys actually reward them for repeating these horrible things. These are not flattering stories. Isn't that right?
Oh, the reason they killed the Christians wasn't because they insulted the gods, because they did, practice the incense. You can say whatever you want with the gods as long as you just threw the incense in the fire.
Oh, right. I remember now.
I knew that one.
I need to brush up myself. Ooh, big shakeup. Alrighty, guys, next question. Double points. Which philosopher did Justin credit with trying to deliver men from demons? Was it Plato, Aristotle, Pythagoras, or Socrates? I know this one. It was Socrates. Most of you guys got it. Very nice, everybody. Okay, next question. True or false? Justin urged that the people who make false accusations should be punished. Is that true or false? It's false. Alrighty, next question. True or false again? Justin says that the Greek craftsmen often change vessels of honor into statues of gods. Is this a trick question, Aramis? Justin says that the Greek craftsmen often change vessels of honor into statues of gods. And it's false. They change vessels of dishonor into statues of gods. That's a common thing. They do, which is it's proof that idol, that image is nothing special. You even take something disgusting or dishonorable and repurpose it. All right, wife, you're at the top again. Let's see how long you can keep your spot there. Next question. According to Justin, what is God's proper name? Is it Yahweh, Elohim, Jehovah, or God has no proper name? Okay, everybody got that one. Yes, if God gives us a name, it's just a way for us to refer to him. But it's not inherent. God didn't just wake up one day and find that, I just have a name. It's not an inherent part of himself. All right, next question. Each man goes to everlasting punishment or salvation according to the value of his what? His faith, convictions, lineage, or actions. Each man goes to it's actions. That's an easy one. But I don't think a lot of Protestants would catch that one. Next question, true or false? Justin called Christ an apostle of God. Did Justin call Christ an apostle? And And it is true. He does. An apostle is just somebody who's sent. And Paul calls Christ, Jesus, an apostle in the book of Hebrews. So it's not just Justin. Alrighty, next question. Here we go. According to Justin, what kind of honor is considered worthy of God? Is it libations of wine and streams of animal blood, or burning incense and offering sacrifices, or gratitude and thanksgiving through prayer and hymns, or observing new moons and the Sabbath? That was just too easy. Too easy. Next question. Double points. In what position does Justin place Jesus Christ in relation to God? Is it equal to the Father in all things, or among the angels as a messenger, or below the prophetic spirit, or second to the unchangeable and eternal God? Good reminders for everybody too, in case they didn't know how to articulate that. Of course, Christ himself is eternal. All the things the Father has are shared with the Son, and yet the Son is still second. Next question. Why do the Romans consider Christians to be mad or insane? Because they do not believe in any kind of sacrifice? Or because they honor a crucified man next to God? Or because they reject all carnal forms of worship? Or because they believe in reincarnation? Why do the Romans consider Christians to be crazy? Paul talks about it too. It's because they honor a crucified man as God. Or next to God. Same thing. And the next question. Double points. Who was the emperor of Rome when Christ was crucified? Was it Tiberius Caesar? Tiberius Caesar? Tiberius Caesar? Tyrannus Caesar? I see that. You said Tiberinus Caesar. Yeah, it was Tiberius, everybody. Good job for catching.
I made it much trickier. I was going to be Tiberius with an A. I wanted to see who would fall for it. But
What
I
is
decided to be nice.
this is craziness. Alright, next question. According to Justin, who do demons subdue? Those who make no strong effort, those who are bad at rhetoric, those who are not fluent in Greek, or those who never frequented the schools of the philosophers? Come on, it's just click it. Those who make no strong effort. Does he really say that? Yeah, he has a good quote about them being oh wait, I can't even say because you might have a question about it. Alright, next question. True or false? Demons have no power to appear in your dreams. Is that true? Demons have no power to appear in your dreams. Of course, that is false. Multiple church fathers talk about that. But they also say anything you do in your dream is neither righteous nor unrighteous. They say you'll neither be condemned. Tertullian says you'll no more be condemned for something you did in a dream than be crowned for a martyrdom you suffered in a dream. But demons do try to entice you to think or do something evil when you wake up based on something you saw in a dream. That's the difference. Okay, next question. Double points. Which transformation does Justin not mention as a result of embracing Christ? Is it turning from magic to faith in the unbegotten God, or ceasing to obey civil laws and authorities, or changing from wealth hoarding to charitable sharing, or becoming friendly with those of foreign nations? Which of these does he not mention as a result of embracing Christ? Which of these is not a result of embracing Christ? You can get it, guys. You got this one. Ceasing to obey civil laws and authorities. Guys, we as Christians do still obey civil laws and authorities. So that's the one he would not say that's one of the things we...
I misread that one.
Yeah, I tried to say it a couple times, but it's okay. Look at these long questions Aramis gives us. But then long answers. I mean, it's like a novel reading all these answers. But it's a good quiz, Aramis. Very nice so far. Adriano has usurped Jordan. All right, next question. True or false? Jesus claimed that he alone was good. That's pretty easy. We're zooming through this one, Aramis. Next question. Why does Justin claim Christ's words were brief and concise? Was it because he lacked formal education? Because his followers did not have scrolls to record long sermons? Or because he was cautious of the Roman authorities? Or because he was not a sophist, but spoke with divine power? All right, who clicked the yellow one? This was an easy one. Come on. Alrighty. Yes, it was because Christ was not a sophist or sophist. And sophistry is just when you engage in really eloquent and wordy forms of speaking, rather than opting for the simplest way of speaking. Christ always opted for the simplest because that's what he preferred. Truth is always in simple speech. True or false? According to Justin, you can only be a true disciple of Christ upon reaching adulthood. Is that true? It is false. He has a particular statement about that, Aramis. If you could have that one ready, if you can pull that one up, or I could. It's a good statement in support of the idea of baptizing infants. All right, next question. What does Christ say about lending with the expectation of return? Does he say it is no different than what publicans do, or that it secures treasure in heaven, or that it is a virtue above other acts of charity, or that it is only acceptable among friends? What does Christ say about lending with the expectation that you're going to return, receive the money back? And that's right. He says that's no different than what publicans do, tax collectors. So if you're just going to get your loan right back, then you're no better than the rest of the world. It's only a righteous deed, guys, if you expect not even to receive that loan in return. You're happy to have given it. And we Christians are allowed to give loans to anybody in need, but we are not allowed to charge them interest. That is called usury. That's a serious sin. All right, next question. True or false? Double points. Only those who profess Christ with their lips will enter the kingdom of heaven. Is this something that Justin talks about? Or is this just a very general question?
No, it's in the book.
You'll have to show me that one too. I mean, I know that this is certainly true about somebody who can't speak, or about children who can't speak. Yes, that would be false. But I would like to know what the context was, because I forgot him talking about this.
But some of that you need the righteous actions as well. Not just those who profess by name, but also those who do the works.
Ah, I see. He's not even talking about exceptions for people who can't speak. He's just saying Professing Christ with lips is not what will save you, he says.
Yes,
The actions is what will save you. I see. That lines up.
But their heart was far from me.
All right. Next question, guys. Double points. Justin said all of these methods overcome those with a violent and tyrannical disposition, except which one? The constancy which they have witnessed in their neighbors' lives, or the Christians' willingness to use the government to get justice, or extraordinary forbearance they have observed in Christians when defrauded, or the honesty of those with whom they have transacted business. Justin said all these methods overcome people with a violent and tyrannical disposition, except which one? In other words, which of these four options? Okay, well, most people got it. It would be Christians' willingness to use the government to get justice. That does not overcome people with a violent and tyrannical disposition.
It makes them worse.
Yeah, I think that just make them angrier. Aramis, these are the longest questions and longest answers you have ever written. But we're enjoying it. Adriano has kept his spot at the top. Okay, everybody, next question. According to Christ's teaching, how should a person respond to being compelled to walk a mile? Should they report the offender to the authorities, protest the injustice loudly, go 2 miles willingly, or refuse and pray instead? Aramis he's giving out free points now. All right.
What does that phrase really mean? Like
What was that?
compelled to walk a mile?
It goes back to a law that the Romans had in place that said that they could actually force people to help them if they were in need. And it wasn't always carrying baggage. That seems to be the only application people are aware of, but I can look it up for you if you want to know the name of that law. Yes. Romans had the legal right to compel civilians to carry their equipment for a distance of 1 mile, which is a practice Jesus references in Matthew 5:41 when he says, if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. What was the name of this? I forget the name of this law. I used to remember it. That's why you should always read things over and over again until it's stuck in your brain. But yeah, that was a real law, and Jesus is just saying, don't resent the Roman authorities. Do not be rebellious or having thoughts of revolting against the civil authorities. Just go along with them and be peaceful.
Okay, it looks like
Luke, I think.
Jimmy acts.
Oh, I think this is another example of a passage. I mean, Luke, maybe, or maybe other people would agree, but I think that this is another example of a passage that you need to go outside the Bible to really understand what Jesus is talking about, or really make sense of why he says that.
Yes, I have it included in my list.
Good.
Yeah, it's one of the most common ones. Even Protestants will go to it. They'll admit there are just some things in the Bible that you have to go and look up culturally. You have to look up historically what in the world it's talking about. If you were just to use Scripture alone, you would be at a loss as to so many things in the Bible. And
Hey,
I,
Luke,
yes,
oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if you're finished, but I was gonna ask you to wait 1 sec before going to the next question because I've been disconnected from the
that's fine.
computers.
I'm just blowing my nose, so take your time.
I'm getting also ius auxili, which is right of help in Latin, and also angaria.
Yeah, I'm back now.
It might be that auxili thing, but
Auxilium and then ius auxili, right of help.
yeah, it was some Latin phrase, and I don't remember what it was, but that was the law
Auxilium.
that the Romans
Like
could compel you.
auxiliary support.
I mean, it's really talking about pacifism too, because when we're told, oh, just the government can just barge in or just tell you, hey, we're using your property, or hey, you have to cooperate with us and help us do something, you just think, I don't want to help this horrible government, this government that oppresses us. Why should I be forced to help the very people that oppress us? But Christ says you should. You should be totally accommodating and kind and never revolting, never resentful toward these oppressive authorities. Now, you should not help them hurt anybody, obviously, but something as simple as carrying somebody's equipment.
So I think
I'm sure no one needs clarification. Like unless it goes against the law of Christ, we don't go along with the government says. With what anyone says, if it goes against Christ's law.
Yes. All right, guys, here we go. Next question. Only got 9 more. True or false? Christians understand that God installs earthly kings solely for waging war against hostile countries. True or false? Christians understand that God installs earthly kings. Okay, you already know that. It's actually for executing justice against evildoers. God would prefer that the kings did that in their own respective countries without waging wars against others. But they still serve their purpose. Next question. True or false? Double points. According to Justin, Christianity introduces things that the Greeks and Romans had never heard before. Christianity is introducing things that they have never heard before. That is false. Justin, throughout this apology, constantly says, the things we're telling you are things you guys are familiar with. A lot of your own poets, a lot of your own philosophers say these things. It is not foreign to you. Well, it is true, guys, that there are some things that are new that the Greeks and Romans didn't invent. It's not something that Justin emphasizes. He's always emphasizing the opposite in order to make their beliefs more palatable and appealing.
So does this show that even the pagans and unbelievers still had things that were like still useful and actually like good for us to like do and carry out since continued in Christianity?
Yeah, it's a very wise tactic when you're evangelizing to point to things in their existing practices and religions and to say, you guys have this thing, but you're not really applying your belief consistently, and we are applying that consistently.
Luke, I have a question. I always thought this, but I wasn't sure. But you know how like the Jews they had the law given to them, as a custodian to train them up, that when the true law came, they would be able to acclimate to it. Um, so do you think philosophy is the same thing for the Gentiles? Because I know philosophy teaches things like self-control. I mean, it was even scorned at, when, a man wasn't, self-controlled in those ways. S-
Yes, in everything, you can go and take things and say, this is a good thing. We're not just to condemn every single aspect of every religion and every philosophy, if that's what you're asking, Raheem.
Yeah, I was just saying that, I was just asking if philosophy was the same for the Gentiles as the law was for the Jews.
Well, it's a little more specific with the law given to the Jews, because that was a punishment, and it was revealed,
Yeah.
it was from God. Whereas the philosophies of the Gentiles, that's just them being more logical and looking at nature, looking at things in creation, and using logic to deduce certain things about God's character, which is something we're encouraged to do. And some of them came to wrong conclusions, but others came to absolutely correct conclusions. Such
Yeah,
a
but didn't the law, like, wasn't it given so that the Jews, as you said, for a punishment, so that they would, you know, change their ways, right?
yes, yes. But
I think
philosophy is still something different. Do you understand what he's saying, Adriano?
like I've heard this connection made. I don't know if a church father talks about it. That
Clement.
like philosophy was like
Clement does.
Clement, yeah, like it was a tutor, like how the law for the Jews was a tutor. You know, there were differences, but they're similar in that they prepared the
I
way
see.
for.
I see. Yes, yes. They have said the same thing. They were preparation.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, they were preparation for Christ. Yep, some of the church fathers do say that, and that makes perfect sense. But also don't forget how much influence the law of Moses had on all the Greek philosophers. So I think ultimately it does, a lot of it just goes back to God revealing things to mankind.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do we know what camp of the philosophers that Justin came from? I can't remember if he mentions that.
He came from all of them. He came from, well, a very large group of the biggest ones. And he talks about that in his dialogue with Trypho. But he ended up leaving all of the four that he had spent a lot of time in. Yep. We actually had a quiz on dialogue with Trypho where that was one of the questions where Aramis asked everybody what were the 4 schools Justin went to. Can everybody name the 4 schools? Who can do it? Nobody. All right, next question.
Luke, you're the one who told me not to really focus on philosophy. So, hey, if I don't know them all, then I'm good.
Yeah, get over. No focus on philosophy.
Oh man, I lost internet connection. Give me a break.
We'll wait, Ben. We'll wait. It's fine.
It does this at night. I'm at my office. It'll turn off for like 3 minutes and turn back on randomly. So
We can
if you give
wait.
it like 30 more seconds, it'll turn. I'm sure it'll turn back on.
It is okay. We're enjoying having you.
I'm bad at first impressions. Sorry, guys. Party foul. I don't know why it's doing this.
Yes, Brian. Yes, Aramis, were you going to say something?
Guerriere. There's another Latin word here. And guerriere.
I saw that one coming up. Yeah, Brian, I've got a nice list. If you run across anything in your regular readings, anything I can add to my list of ideas or words that you wouldn't understand in the Bible unless you had some cultural understanding, that would be very helpful if any of you guys do that. Because I've got a very large list to help wake people up to the fact that it is very helpful and useful and in sometimes completely essential to have some cultural knowledge to understand the Bible. Crucifixion, I think, is one of the best ones, or else you end up like a Jehovah's Witness thinking that Jesus was pinned to a stake. If you don't go by historical understanding of certain things, you don't even acknowledge Jesus to have been crucified.
I mean, you can maybe because it says that there were nails that there were nails that were put into his hands.
Right?
That's more than
They
one.
believe that. They believe that. They believe it's just one stake and that his hands were raised above his head and then that he was nailed to it.
Yeah, but I think the idea in theirs is there's one nail going through both hands.
I'm back in it.
Anyways,
Wait, can you elaborate on what you're saying, Luke?
We were just saying that there's some concepts in the Bible that are either very difficult or impossible to understand if you don't know anything about history or cultures.
No, I mean the what you just mentioned about the cross.
Oh yeah, the Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe Jesus was crucified to a cross. They think he was impaled on a stake.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, they have some weird ideas. They hate the cross. Very satanic. Okay, everybody ready? We're going to do the next question.
I'm ready.
Here we go.
Thank you for waiting.
That's okay. According to Justin, how could the pagans know that souls exist after death? Is it by resurrected family members? Or signs performed at the festivals? Or necromancers? Or screaming heard at the Stygian abyss? How could the pagans know that souls exist after death? He says you could know it from necromancers who've attempted such things.
Luke, the Protestants, I'm not sure if they're right when they say this. I used to say it as well, but there's that verse in Deuteronomy, I think it's like chapter 18 or chapter 12, around there, where it talks about necromancy, and they've applied that to people who pray to Mary. Is that a valid application, you think?
I think it absolutely is. I don't know how they can get out of it. Necromancy is when you try to call up the souls of the dead. And they believe, they always make some ridiculous counter argument like, well, they're not dead, they're alive. So stupid. You are just contradicting not only reality, you know that person died physically, but also the scriptures, such as Paul saying, the dead in Christ will rise first. So, yeah, they're dead. So if you are attempting to communicate with them, and if you claim even to have brought them up by doing devotions to them and paying honor to them and to their image, and that you claim to see them appearing to you, or like some monks, I've got one story that we did a call on where we were reading some of the Orthodox monks saying, "Yeah, I failed to do honor to my image one day, like I was supposed to, and then the image of Mary spoke to me and said, 'Hey, how dare you? Dust me off. I've gotten dirty.'" This is absolutely necromancy.
It's interesting because I kind of forgot about that passage, but I guess it's another example of the Protestants have, or maybe just a non-Catholic having a like a genuine good objection to them. Um, yeah, but then of course the Catholics will have good objections to the Protestants. So it's kind of like they both have good points towards each other, right?
Yes, it's blow for blow. They exchange blows, and it's very sad that they both, every group, guys, that remains stubborn and persists in its false beliefs always does so because their opponents also have a lot of weaknesses. And it's undeniable weaknesses that cause them to stay in their own sect and say, well, the other side's got problems. That's why the Muslims still have not been completely won over, because despite so many false beliefs they have, they can point to things that are legitimately wrong with Protestants and with Catholics. One of the biggest ones being the image worship. And they know that's evil. They know that's a sin. And they can see how immodest Americans are, and they can just see how irreligious so many of them are. So it's no surprise, same with every sect. If somebody tries to tell the Jehovah's Witnesses that, or the Mormons that, oh, your works don't matter, they know that's wrong. They can show you all the scriptures that tell you your works do matter and are necessary for salvation. Those will be the things they focus on. They're going to ignore all their own faults, and they're just going to focus on the inconsistencies in their opponents.
Luke, I have a question.
Yes, Robert.
Sorry for bringing this up late because I was at work. But anyways, I remember you telling me the Roman law thing was completely made up. So does Justin talk about this?
No, Justin doesn't talk about it. Are you sure you're not thinking about the eye of the needle thing?
No, you. I remember you telling me like when your brother asks, go with you 1 mile, go with him 2. I forgot how the parable goes, but
I think we
I
did say
remember you
that.
telling me it was about the Roman law.
If I did say that, I was mistaken. I know that the eye of the needle thing it's not a real gate. You always hear Protestants say that, fitting through the eye of the needle is a camel trying to bend down and have all its luggage taken off to fit through a narrow gate. That's not real. That was made up in the 1500s. But maybe it was some aspect of the Roman law, because you know that people repeat stories and they add details. I don't remember, Robert, but it is real. I have looked into it. I have.
I think perhaps the mistake was like thinking that the Romans could make you go 1 mile. Like they could make you do things, but I don't know if it was like 1 mile.
I don't remember. But people do make up interpretations. They make up histories and traditions that are not real.
I, th- I think I think the myth is that they could make you pick up your stuff and walk for 1 mile, but the truth is they could just make you do a variety of things. It doesn't have to be like carry my shield for a mile, right?
Yeah, it was a variety of things that the Romans could force you to do.
Yeah.
You basically were just required to go help them with something if they say, "Come help me." Yeah, maybe that was what I was saying, but I don't remember, Robert. Alrighty, next question, guys. What is said to happen in hell, according to Justin? Is it that only demons are punished, not humans, or that both body and soul are punished eternally, or that people are separated from God temporarily, or that souls are destroyed and cease to exist?
Pay attention, Adriano.
What is said to happen in hell?
Yeah, I just read it. Come on.
Are you sure it's not green, Adriano?
I've actually it's weird because I've heard people claim Justin Martyr was an annihilationist, and I don't really see that.
Yes, they all taught that souls are punished eternally. Even Origen, and he's the one who's accused of that, of the opposite the most. Origen gives
Luke,
the best explanation as to why that is just.
Do you know what book he says it in? Is that in
Well, it's
Homilies on Leviticus?
no, it's the first book of On First Principles. And he doesn't say
Oh, that's pretty
explicitly,
good.
but I would just say the way he frames it, then I would say it's implied, this explanation. But he essentially says every single rational creature participates in God's logos to some degree. And he defines the logos as rationality, as reasoning, logical thinking, and all of the good traits in God, like love and mercy and all these virtues. He says, so all the virtues, if a person has any virtues, it's because God is giving them a participation in his logos. He's given them his mind. And that God could revoke it. If God wanted, he could take all these things. I guess it's talking about like taking away the spirit from a person, because the spirit is that thing that speaks to you and is good in you and tries to mold the soul into something that's similar to God. And so Origen then implies, he says, people who people who are thrown in fire, people who are given the final judgment, they are stripped of God's logos. So he was making it sound like you are going to be eternally evil. That it's in this life that you have a chance to reform yourself and repent of your sins, and whatever state you're found in will be the state that you're going to exist in eternally, minus some, if there are some minor sins, God will cleanse you, or he will purge you, which is where we get the word purgatory. He'll purge you of any minor defects, but he's not going to do an overhaul on anybody on the day of judgment. You are going to remain what you were at the time of your death. So if you were somebody evil, if you had any little bits of goodness in you, Origen was implying that's going to be stripped off of you. You will be eternally evil. And so, because of that, you will be eternally worthy of punishment because you're never going to be good. So, if you're always evil, you're always deserving to be punished. That was what he implied, although not explicitly.
Luke, Tertullian has a quote, that says that everyone has good in them, and he's saying that good is the conscience.
Yes, that's the spirit. That's the spirit. But the spirit is taken away from you at your death. Remember, it says that the soul goes down, the body remains on the earth, and the spirit goes up. The spirit goes back to the one who gave it, the scriptures say.
And it's interesting because the soul is immortal, so I don't see how annihilation can work. Obviously, I don't know.
Yeah, annihilation's wrong, right?
Yeah, I know it's wrong. I know it's wrong.
It's funny, you have two groups, guys. You have the annihilationists and the universalists. Two people who say, God would never torture anybody eternally. God, that would be too cruel, they say. That would be unjust. And they each say, read the Bible, it's so clear that, and then the annihilationists will say, it's clear that God destroys the soul permanently and it doesn't suffer forever. And then the other group says, yeah, just read the Bible, it's so clear that every soul is going to be saved. And it's like, wait a second, you guys are saying it's so clear, and you have come to complete opposite conclusions. One of you saying it's so obvious that the soul is completely annihilated, and the other one saying it's so obvious that every soul goes to heaven forever. So I've always found that kind of funny.
There's 10,000 denominations that are using the same phrase. It's so clear.
Yeah. No, it is eternal, guys, and that's why you ought to strive to reform yourself and to cleanse yourself from all these wicked things.
Yeah.
Devote yourself to God as a vessel fit for honorable use, and make yourself his servant. And
When
God,
did this?
yes,
I'm
Ben?
sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. When did this annihilationist thought first spring up? I mean, I figured that would have came way later from wishful thinking.
It's something that it's something that some philosophers believe. Some of the Greeks believed that the soul did exist, but that it would be destroyed eventually. They didn't believe it was immortal. And you have some church fathers, like Peter, is recorded by Clement to have refuted this idea, and he says, "Oh, you would wish that your souls were mortal and that they would just be evaporated." But he says, "No, there will be a judgment, and there is eternal fire prepared."
Luke, I'm sorry for still talking or adding one more thing, but I think it's appropriate to bring up. Uh, I've I've seen people want to criticize the church fathers, and one of the things that they'll mention is, oh yeah, Clement of Alexandria was a universalist. But I've never gotten that reading his writings. Are you familiar, or is anyone familiar with how someone could even come to that conclusion?
No,
That he,
Yeah,
I'd have to
I
look
I
it
know.
up.
I
I know.
have a I've read a quote from Clement that it's like he's saying that God is capable of doing this, but it doesn't seem like he's really affirming it specifically. But I see how
I see.
people could take that and twist it. Um,
It's
yeah,
slander.
I I think the anyone arguing for those views based on like, oh, it seems cruel, I don't think that's a good argument. Like, I mean, I think the view is God is capable of any of these things. Um, but God is clearly communicating to us with conveying a sense of fear of this judgment. I think it's beyond comprehension how horrible it is. So I think the fear matters. But like I wouldn't say God is incapable of doing any of that. So yeah.
I think for any statement somebody could bring trying to prove that any one of these church fathers don't believe in eternal hellfire, I could show you 10 or 15 or 20 more quotes from them affirming it. And so it's one vague passage versus 10 or 15 explicit ones in every case. All right, well, we'll go to the next question. Too bad Nolan wasn't here. I would have enjoyed having him here to talk with you guys. Okay, true or false? Christians should not pay taxes if they know the money will be used for war or abortion. Is it false or is it true? It's false. Guys, got to remember that when Jesus told them to pay taxes to Caesar, he's talking about very wicked emperor. And when Paul in Romans 13 tells you to obey the emperor and obey the king, he's talking about Nero, one of the most despicable people in all of human history, and a man who persecuted Christians and, I mean, used them as torches in his gladiator games, which everybody knows. So he's telling you to obey a completely wicked empire and pay taxes to them, and of course that was going to be used for evil. But you're not responsible for that. You're just responsible for keeping the peace. That was a good question, Aramis. Next question.
I learned something new.
Yep. Justin gives a list of oracles. Who does he not list? Was it Perseus, Amphilochus, Dodona, or Pitho? Which of these is not listed in his list of oracles? How can you call this one easy, Aramis? Some of these are so... You had to really be paying attention. Look at how split up they are. Look at this. I guess Perseus, though, is definitely not a female. You guys know that the oracles are all female, right? Perseus is a man.
Actually,
You telling me that Donna doesn't sound like a female name?
Amphilochus, Luke, I'm sure that's a male name. Oracles is different from the Sibyls, Luke. The Sibyls were all female prophetesses. Oracles are just like anybody who has some special knowledge. You know the oracles of the Jews, oracles of the Hebrews. The Sibyls, Luke, were all female.
I see. Absolutely nobody got this right, by the way.
Well,
Yeah, I misread the
When
question.
you read
But
so many church fathers, guys, you understand who Perseus is. You understand. You know who these guys are by now. They all talk
Perseus
about
is the son of Poseidon. He's not an oracle.
every
That's
single church father talks about the Greek myths, guys. You should be
It's
giving
okay.
credit.
It's okay, guys. Look, nobody got any points from that one. Look at that. Dead. All right, Adriana. It's real close here. I do sense that Jordan may be aching for first place, so just
That'll be her
stay vigilant.
third victory.
All right, next question, everybody. Why would people find the idea of a resurrected body difficult to believe, according to Justin? Was it because they do not fear hell, or because resurrection is only symbolic, or because it contradicts science, or because it has never happened before? Why would people find the idea of a resurrected body difficult to believe? And it was because it has never happened before. That's what the pagans believe. Ooh. Who is this Calais?
We all know that's Isaiah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
All right, next question, everybody. Double points. Which conclusion is drawn from comparing human reproduction to the resurrection? Is it that both demonstrate the soul's superiority, or that both require the aid of angels, or that both are unbelievable until witnessed, or both prove that matter is eternal? What conclusion is drawn from comparing human reproduction to the resurrection? And it is that both are unbelievable until witnessed. It's amazing to think about how God made all these things. God could have made people grow on trees if he wanted to. Nobody would have batted an eye if that's how things would have been.
Can I get an explanation on this? I'm confused. How
it was
is
the
human reproduction unbelievable until
so no,
witnessed?
he says like this the seed. You know, it's this tiny little like the sperm is so small, and yet that fertilizes the egg and grows into this huge human. How do you get this tiny small thing to become this fully grown human? Like how do you know?
I
But
mean, you
like
see that. I mean, you see that everywhere, though.
we
Even without, even if it's not like an animal, like you get that from like
yes,
plants. It's in everything.
but if you have not if you haven't seen the process take place, it would seem unbelievable on first thought
Well,
because it's like this small thing becomes this huge thing.
even if you saw your child come on who doesn't know much about trees, hey son, you know where trees come from? They're like, no, dad. We would take this small little seed, put it in the ground, and turn into a huge mustard seed. Like, Daddy, I don't believe that until I see it. So even little kids will
That's
say that.
okay. I get it. I understand.
Alrighty, most of you guys got it, so good job. Next question. Which group believed that even God would be resolved into fire? Did you mean to say dissolved?
No.
Resolved into fire. Was that the Platonists, Peripatetics, Aristotelians, or Stoics? Which group believed that even God would be resolved into fire? That would be the Stoics. You can show them the passages if anybody would like to hear Justin talking about these things. Only 2 people got that one right. Last question, everybody. Which poet declared that the workman is greater than the work? Was it Homer, Menander, Solon, or Apollonius? I remember this one. And it was Menander, the very evil playwright. but at least you got that right. You guys always notice that when they're bashing people who bow to images, they're always saying, why would somebody bow down to their own works? The work of their own hands. Always, that's what they're saying. The Catholics want to make it about who's being depicted. They're like, you're bowing down to the images of the wrong people. That's why the pagans are condemned. Not according to the fathers. You're condemned for bowing down to a dead piece of matter that your own hands made. Anyway, let's see what the results are. In third place, Jordan, good job. And Isaiah, second place. And Adriano, I'm very impressed. And all of you guys did very well. The runners-up were David and I didn't read. And we know the reason why you guys have so many more points than the others, that you're just clicking the answers so quickly, which gives you more points.
But also, in Erwis's quizzes, you actually reward for taking your time.
Yeah, no more double points. It's too much. It gets them too far ahead of everybody.
I'm not sure, Luke. I think the proportions should be the same.
All right. Well, anyway, good job, guys. That was enjoyable. It's good seeing all of you. Do you guys have any questions before? I mean, I don't have to go anywhere.
Luke, you can read Greek, right? Or like the letters?
Yeah.
What are the two names on the podium mean?
Calais Symphonia? Well, symphony. Symphony just sounds like symphony. I think it means like a group of people in agreement, all doing something together. Yeah,
Oh,
Jordan says it's a symphony or harmony, so people doing something
and Cali's
harmoniously.
like California. It's a Californian group, Californian Sympathy.
California? What are you talking about?
And
Calais.
then
Yes, Calais. She already put it on the screen. So Calais means good. So it's like a good harmony or good symphony. Is that what you meant to write?
okay, so it means like good. That's like the whole thing?
Well, I just see two words. Is that all you got?
Well, if that's all it means, then that's like a long word for good.
Yep, it just
Good
means
job, Adriano.
yes.
I had low expectations. But I did just read it, so I guess it was fresh in my memory.
Yeah, you killed it.
Very impressive, guys.
I had a question. Question is, I forget which chapter it is, but when I was reading, Justin, I think he said something like, if they find Christians who aren't behaving like Christians, like they should be punished by the government.
Yes, and we believe that. We believe the evil people deserve to be punished. Absolutely.
Yeah, but he doesn't phrase it like evil people. Like, actually, I think he
I
does. I
think
think he gives like examples of things that Christians shouldn't do before that. To be honest.
yes, I think I remember what you're talking about. Is he saying that each should be tried according to their deeds, and they should be examined? That if they're found, to be evil, well, that they prove that they aren't Christians, and they should be charged of their evilness or their crime. Right?
It's at the end of chapter 16, and it just says, "By their works ye shall know them, and every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. And as to those who are not living pursuant to these his teachings, and are Christians only in name, we demand that all such be punished by you."
Yeah, because they're not Christians, they're just criminals. It's the government's job to punish criminals.
Yes, he's saying that we have nothing wrong with the justice system, punishing people, but we just don't want innocent people being punished.
Just for the name.
Yes, so evil people go right ahead and punish.
Because it was never illegal to do alms or to be at peace. Those aren't what's illegal. It was just legal because your name was a Christian. That's what they were being punished for. And for evil rumors, like, oh, they practice incest and, they kill babies and they eat the flesh of babies and the blood of babies.
You should activate your actual microphone, Aramis.
I don't know how to activate it.
You push the button. Anyway, yes, you're exactly right, David. If all the rumors about the Christians were true, then they deserve to be punished. The things they were accused of most often were incest, orgies, killing babies, and eating their flesh as cannibals. Those are the two main ones. So he said, if this is true, then absolutely. We think they deserve to die. But that doesn't mean he himself or any Christian would actually go kill anybody. You get it?
Yeah.
They believe that was only right for the magistrates to do. Now, Christians do have a way of punishing people who are evil, but it doesn't consist in killing them or whipping them or anything. The way Christians will deal with someone who is evil is they will, first of all, disown that person, kick them out of the church, and say, and we're not talking about a church building here, we're saying this person is no longer considered a Christian. They're disowned by all the Christians, and then the Christians also do not speak to that person. They have absolutely nothing to do with them if they are excommunicated because of some heresy or because they're just unrepentant in their sin and refuse to change. The Christians took that very seriously. They consider that to be a judgment that they would dispense themselves. Again, not killing anybody, not hurting anybody, but refusing to associate with that person.
Yeah, I have another question. So, of course the government serves a purpose, but would it be wrong to, like, address a specific person who's in the government, telling them to punish someone for something? Because at the end of the day, like, we would want them to convert eventually, and that would be held against them, that would be another sin on them.
You're talking about, would it be wrong to call a civil authority to come and judge or punish somebody, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's read Acts 22. Let's see if that ever happened.
I don't mean, like, holding, like, the government in general. I'm talking about, like, saying to, like, a specific person in the government.
Well, it's not really that much different. Calling the police or calling a government official to come arrest somebody are not really that different, are they?
They're not that much different.
Yeah, they're not that much different. Where is that? Where is it in Acts? Paul's nephew. It's Acts 23. I was close. So it's right here. It says, with the following night. Yeah, it says, this is Acts 23, verse 12. And when it was day, some of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under an oath, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. So this is a threat against Paul's life. Now there were more than 40 who had formed this conspiracy. They came to the chief priests and elders and said, "We've bound ourselves under a great oath that we will eat nothing until we have killed Paul. Now you therefore, together with the council, suggest to the commander that he be brought down to you tomorrow." Now remember, guys, Paul is in the custody of a Roman centurion right now. It says, "Suggest to the commander that he be brought down to you tomorrow, as though you were going to make further inquiries concerning him, but we are ready to kill him before he comes near." So when Paul's sister's son, that's Paul's nephew, heard of their ambush, he went and entered the barracks and told Paul. Then Paul called one of the centurions to him and said, "Take this young man to the commander, for he has something to tell him." So he took him and brought him to the commander and said, "Paul the prisoner called me to him and asked me to bring this young man to you. He has something to say to you." Then the commander took him by the hand, went aside, and asked privately, "What is it that you have to tell me?" And he said, "The Jews have agreed to ask that you bring Paul down to the council tomorrow, as though they were going to inquire more fully about him. But do not yield to them, for more than 40 of them lie in wait for him, men who have bound themselves by an oath that they will neither eat nor drink till they have killed him. Now they are ready and waiting for the promise from you." So the commander let the young man depart, and commanded him, "Tell no one that you have revealed these things to me." And he called for 2 centurions, saying, "Prepare 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at the 3rd hour of the night, and provide mounts to set Paul on, and bring him safely to Felix the governor." He wrote a letter in the following manner. So he just writes to Felix and says, "I'm bringing him to you." It says, "Then the soldiers, as they were commanded, took Paul and brought him by night to Antipatris. The next day they left the horsemen to go on with him, and returned to the barracks." So, yeah, an entire armed group of soldiers, 200 of them, protected Paul, and Paul technically asked for this. He asked for protection, that he would be protected with lethal force. He made use of the men whose custody he was in to protect him. And that is pretty much the same thing as calling the police if you were under some kind of attack. We have nothing against evil people suffering punishment or being even executed. But we as Christians don't execute them ourselves. We are not the judges of mankind. But we do see that governments and police forces are institutions that God approves of because they punish evildoers and discourage evil people from doing more evil. To use a more extreme example, guys, in the Old Testament, do you remember that God used nations like Babylon or Persia or even the Philistines, the Canaanites, to punish Israel when Israel was doing something evil? And God would allow them to come to Israel and overthrow them and even exile them, take them into captivity. And it's not that God approved of these wicked nations, nor did he consider them to be righteous when they did these things, when they punished the Israelites for their disobedience and unfaithfulness to God. But he did see it as something that they deserved. The Israelites deserved to be punished that way. So one part of justice was being fulfilled. But there are two parts that make something completely just. It's not just the person who deserves to be punished, being punished, that makes it just, but also that the one executing the punishment would be someone appointed by God to do it. For instance, if you knew that there was some wicked pedophile or something like that, and you just went and decided to kill him, assassinate him in his house, we would all say, "Oh, that pedophile or whoever, he deserved to die." We would all say that. But we would still say you murdered him. And you were not one who'd been given that authority to go and end his life. So justice was incomplete without a person being appointed for that job. And I think that's what's going on with these other nations coming and punishing Israel. It's not that the people doing it are righteous, but God does approve of evildoers being punished and killed in certain situations. That does discourage other people from doing evil. But God's the ultimate judge, and he's the only true and legitimate judge because he's perfectly righteous. And any of us, if we set ourselves up as judges to kill somebody, we're really not fit for that because we're not righteous ourselves. So if we do judge other people and kill other people for their sin, well, we're just asking God to kill us because we're guilty of sins too. Only a perfect person is a perfect judge. So,
Yeah, I have another question you might not be able to answer, but I was just gonna ask if someone is born a ruler and they have the responsibility of giving out execution orders versus a vigilante who uh, kills people who do evil things. Is it less, is like murder less held against the ruler because he was given that authority in a sense?
well, he wouldn't be in the category of a murderer if he killed some evil person, if he killed an actual murderer.
Okay.
Yeah, killing someone who is very evil or who is a murderer is it's less. There are degrees of sin, guys. There's just cold-blooded murder, just killing some person who never wronged you or never committed any serious offense anybody's aware of. And then there's killing somebody in revenge, or in defense of others. That would be a less evil sin to commit. There are degrees. But somebody in government who goes and executes people, God would prefer that he not be in that position. He can't be a Christian if he's executing people. But he still serves a purpose that, serves God's purpose, which is to destroy evildoers from off the earth and to discourage other people from committing sin. But if you want to become a Christian, you have to cease from all political office and from military service because of the fact that you're going to be asked to kill people. Have you ever read this, David? This is from Hippolytus' Apostolic Tradition. Have you ever read this one?
No, I haven't read it before.
All right. Well, this is the 16th chapter. Hippolytus wrote this in Rome, and he says this is the tradition of the church in Rome. And so he says, if anybody wants to become a catechumen, if they want to be instructed in the faith, and they're coming to the church and they're saying, please instruct me, I want to be a Christian. He says, then they, meaning the church overseers, will inquire concerning the works and occupations of those who are brought forward for instruction. If someone is a pimp who supports prostitutes, he shall cease, or he shall be rejected. So he's saying he will not teach somebody who is currently a pimp. He has to stop first. And he says if someone is a sculptor or a painter, let him be taught not to make idols. Either let him cease or let him be rejected. If someone is an actor or does shows in the theater, either he shall cease or he shall be rejected. If someone teaches children worldly knowledge, it is good that he cease, but if he has no other trade, let him be permitted. A charioteer likewise, or one who takes part in the games, or one who goes to the games, he shall cease, or he shall be rejected. If someone is a gladiator, or one who teaches those among the gladiators how to fight, or a hunter who's in the wild beast shows in the arena, or a public official who is concerned with gladiator shows, either he shall cease or he shall be rejected. If someone is a priest of idols or an attendant of idols, he shall cease or he shall be rejected. Now listen to this, Adam. Or, what did I say? David. Excuse me. Okay, he says, a military man in authority must not execute men. If he's ordered, he must not carry it out, nor must he take a military oath. If he refuses, he shall be rejected. So he's saying if anybody wants to become someone instructed in the church, a catechumen who's preparing for baptism, if he's a military man in authority, he needs to not kill anybody. He needs to cease killing people. Even if a person is evil, he says, you as a Christian may not execute anybody. And then he says, if someone is a military governor or a ruler of a city who wears the purple, he shall cease or he shall be rejected. So you can't be a governor of any kind. You're out of politics. And he says the catechumen or faithful, that would mean the catechumen or a baptized person, who wants to become a soldier is to be rejected, for he has despised God. He says the prostitute, the wanton man, the one who castrates himself, or one who does that which may not be mentioned, are to be rejected, for they are impure. He talks about magicians and all that. So notice how prostitutes or somebody who is a priest of idols or a person who wants to join the military are seen as being in this a similar category. Christians are not allowed to be killing people. And he says if you are already in the military and you're stuck, which did happen sometimes, Tertullian and others talk about that, he says, fine, we understand that, but you need to say, I'm never going to carry out that order of killing. He says a military man in authority must not execute men. If he's ordered, he must not carry it out. So if you're there in that Roman military, you'll try to complete your service, but you know that the main thing you're forbidden from is killing.
Luke, and it seems like people who did that, they would be figured out. They would be, found out that they're Christians. Because this person, they couldn't do much. The emperor says, "All right, we're going to do a military campaign." You can't do it. You can't do it. So they're gonna question you, and they're gonna find out that you're a Christian, and it seems like that leads to martyrdom. But I say that because I think it was the chaplain where Tertullian gives a story of a centurion, um, who stopped wearing his crown, and they, they convict him that they found that he was Christian, and they killed him.
Right, that is
Right?
true. Yes, they were willing to die for the faith. Was there anything about that in particular, Raheem, that you were asking about?
No, no, I just wanted to share.
Yes, that's it. It is a good point. Well, all the fathers are consistent about that. We don't fight in wars and we don't kill people.
What was that? Sorry to interject. What was that quote you said about self castration? Who was that you were quoting?
This is Hippolytus in his apostolic tradition. He was a presbyter in Rome in the 200s.
And what was his comment about that?
He just says if anybody castrates themselves, he says the catechumen or faithful who wants to become a soldier, he's to be rejected. The prostitute, the wanton man, or the one who castrates himself, or one who does that which may not be mentioned, are to be rejected, for they are impure.
How does that relate to becoming a eunuch?
Well, if somebody's castrated against their will, that's not their fault. He's just saying people who do that, who mutilate themselves, they are not to be instructed if that's something they do to themselves.
I thought Origin was said to have had that performed.
Have you seen the video that we put out about Origin where we talk about that accusation and every accusation that has ever been made against Origin?
I think I made probably halfway through that video. I don't think I got around to that.
Yeah, that would be a very serious thing if Origin had done that, but that's an unsubstantiated claim. Origin himself taught that if anybody ever did that, that they were an idiot, and he uses that word, idiot. So it's an unsubstantiated claim. There were a lot of slanders against Origin, and we don't believe that.
So how does that relate to becoming a eunuch? I mean, when Christ talks about anyone who's able to accept that, and I think Justin even mentions that. I can't remember what
Yes,
chapter it
lots
is.
of church fathers talk about it, and I'll explain it to you. You know that Jesus is not talking about physical castration where somebody actually cuts the part off of themselves, because he says some people are born eunuchs. So, you can't be born with somebody who, you're actually physically castrated like that. You can be born not having any desire for those things and having that special gift for it. Some people are like that for their whole lives. It's very rare though. And Jesus says it's a gift. It's only for those to whom it is given. So he says that it's a special gift from God to actually be free of the desire for any kind of sexuality. And it's something that we ought to pray to God for. I made the mistake of thinking if I didn't have the gift, I can never have it. And I was married and I have a very good marriage, but then I read the Fathers a little more and I realized you can actually pray for the gift and receive the gift of being a eunuch or being a person who is just not inclined toward sexuality and who lives a celibate life. So it's not talking about literally castrated.
Okay, so I misunderstood that, and another thing, kind of along the same, well, sort of along the same lines of what you were saying from Justin. He talks about the purpose for marriage, and confidently says the purpose for marriage is only to propagate, to have children, um, and thus by extension, quelling what Paul talks about as the for the sake of sexual immorality. Is that the accurate uh, early church view of marriage?
Yes, it is amazing how many of them say that same thing, that sexuality is only for the propagation of mankind. However, even though they say it is a sin for a person to do that without the intention of having children, as long as they're not actually suppressing conception, if they're not actively, just wasting their seed or taking potions to break their bodies, as long as they're open to having children and they allow themselves to conceive children, then they're not under condemnation from God. They do commit a lesser sin, and the fathers put it in the category of gluttony, when people are just giving in to pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. That's all they're using their bodies for. Yeah, it is a sin, but it's not
It is.
nearly, yes, it's not nearly as bad as a sin like a person who uses contraception and refuses to have children.
So yeah, that's good because I have been, and I'm just kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but I've thought about this a lot lately, um, because I do have children, but I and my wife used to use contraception, but I just from a feeling was something just felt like it wasn't right. It didn't seem. Um, it didn't seem like it was a godly thing to do, to suppress your body to do that. um so but the natural way of birth control, I guess you could say, I don't like that term, would be to waste your seed, which I have done, but I don't know if you're concurrently trying to have kids at strategic times. How would you view that?
Abstinence is the most well-known kind of birth control, and God would never
Okay.
condemn people for being abstinent in their entire marriage if you chose to do that. But
Right.
if we are going to be engaging in the pleasures, we need to accept the responsibilities and be having children.
Okay.
Yep. And I just posted here a list of quotes from the fathers on this. It's shocking how many of them talk about this, starting as early as uh, Barnabas, letter of Barnabas, and Ignatius talking about it. But Ignatius, for instance, he talks about Peter and Paul and the rest of the apostles, that they were married men, for they entered into these marriages not for the sake of appetite, but out of regard for the propagation of mankind. So he says that was the reason, not appetite, meaning sexual appetite. That's not a reason to be married. But unfortunately, it is a reason that a lot of people get married. And as some of the fathers say, like I think either Clement or one of the early fathers says this phrase. They say it's better to fall on the bed. If a person is going to fall, meaning into sin, sexual sin, better to fall on the bed than on the ground. And he says, in other words, better to have lawful intercourse with your wife and produce children and do this work for God and accept that responsibility along with this pleasure you're indulging in. But this is a concession that God gives to the people who are weaker. Nobody can just use a body for their pleasures, their spouse, and reject the responsibility to conceive children. So God bless you, Ben, for listening to your conscience, because God was speaking to you. And most of us married men have done things we regret in our marriages and have had to learn from reading the fathers and reading the scriptures that there's some things that are off limits. But yes, if we're married, we fully embrace having children, and we try to treat our wives honorably and with respect, and not as a harlot, because it's harlots that are used for pleasure and who no one expects to conceive children from. But it's just pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. That's all we want you for. But no, we want our wives for the children that God gives us through them. And we have to embrace that as an inherent part of marriage. Marriage is not complete if people are just having relations with each other and not letting God bring forth children. They're wanting to have their cake and eat it too. But here, if you click on this link here I just posted here, lots of quotes in here about abstinence, tons and tons and tons and tons. A massive list, even all the way down. I think we stopped at around the 500s. This was very consistent, and then we threw in some Martin Luther and John Calvin and John Wesley, just some of the reformers, because even the reformers agreed with this, that sexuality is for propagating mankind, and anybody who just does it for pleasure, they had better be allowing God to still conceive the child. Because otherwise, if you're just blocking it, you're just making it impossible, or actively fighting against it, then now you're committing a very serious sin. Otherwise, it's just a lesser sin if you're somebody who just, does it really frequently. And I only wish I was perfect in that regard. But I strive to be perfect. It's much more difficult when you're young. But as the fathers say, that's no excuse.
That's good. Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
I just wanted to ask, seeing as well on this topic, is there a waiting time after a woman gives birth, like mentioned in the Old Testament? Do the church fathers mention that?
Well,
As well?
they mention some things. I mean, the church fathers just say we only have relations with our wives for the sake of conceiving children. But sometimes they'll say, it's a very serious sin. I mean, it's bad enough just to be having relations with your spouse, with your wife when she's fertile and able to conceive. But then there are degrees of sin, like, since we're on the topic, guys, but just to have relations with your wife when she's menstruating is very perverted. It's terrible. I mean, it's even worse than doing it while she is already pregnant, or all just when there's just not the time for conceiving. Yeah, I mean, God makes us there degrees of filthiness that humans can engage in and then be ashamed of afterward and just say, man, what's wrong with me? Not even animals do that. You guys realize not even animals have intercourse when they know a female is menstruating. But, God lets human beings act worse than animals in order to convict us and to show us we need to get control of ourselves. The fathers say it over and over again, but having sexual relations is not a necessity. It's not like needing to eat and drink and sleep. It's just a thing that people have an urge to do. You can thank God for marriage, but you really should strive to overcome this urge and not be worse than an animal, because even animals have more self-control. And we make fun of the animals when we see them acting crazy, like dogs, just jumping on stuff with no rational thinking, or rabbits who people make fun of for doing that a lot. We have to strive to get control of ourselves, because if our spouse died, are we justified to just go find a harlot for ourselves or to do other perverted things? No. You'd have to control yourself. You have to control yourself if your wife is menstruating. You have to control yourself if she's recovering from birth, which can take 6 or 8 weeks sometimes. Yeah, at some point you just have to come to terms with it that this is not a necessity to live. You have to overcome this and be thankful to God that He gives you a way to, to not fall flat on your face on the floor, but that there's a bed to fall on. There is a lawful way to do these things. But we should still just try not to be lovers of fleshly pleasure. Because unfortunately, guys, the more you engage in it, the more you want to do it more, It's a vicious cycle. And I know from experience, it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling to just feel like, I just, always want this thing. You do feel like an animal. If you were separated from your wife, if she got in some accident and you couldn't do it anymore, I mean, you'd have to say to yourself, all right, I'm going to control myself. I'm just going to get over it. I'm going to be rational. So why not do it now? You're not going to be doing that for eternity. There is no more marriage in heaven. She's going to be your sister. You're going to be her brother. Why not start doing that right now? I'm speaking to myself as much as I'm speaking to you guys. The truth is, even in heaven, she's not even going to be your sister. She's going to be your brother. But that's among the more advanced things to learn. Yet better to start living the angelic life now. Again, the fathers put it in the category of gluttony. It is not one of the greatest sins to have relations with your spouse when, she's already pregnant. but it still is just gluttony. Get control of yourself. You're only doing it for pleasure at that point. But of course, it would be better to do that with your lawful spouse than to go and do it with a prostitute. It's like,
So not even while she's pregnant. Is that what you said?
oh yeah, even the fathers specify that. They say if you're to be perfect, don't be worse than an animal. Animals don't do that with each other when they're pregnant. As a farmer doesn't sow his field when it's already perfectly planted and growing. He doesn't do that. He doesn't plow his field repeatedly. That makes no sense. It's irrational. And we know it's irrational if we do it, but it's just an impulse. I always imagine myself, if I ever feel overcome by those fleshly urges, I feel like a man, like his horses are like, out of control. They're like running away from him. He's trying to grab the reins, and they're just, you know, just ruining his field or something, trampling the growing plants or something. I feel like that. I'm like, get control of these wild animals. But I think that's why God made that analogy of the farmers, sowing their fields, is so that we can understand, well, I am the one in charge of this team of horses or oxen or whatever. I need to control the wild animal in me. Yep, it's a lot of quotes, as you can see here, Ben. It's a whole lot. You can read all these. It goes up to about the 500s. And the fathers are wonderful because they don't just beat you over the head. The quotes are kind of split up between them beating you over the head and saying, get control of yourself here. This is a sin if they say you're just the worst. They'll really bash you. If you're somebody who actually does this every day, you are just completely out of your control. They say you should be giving alms every day to make up for this kind of behavior. But then they also will say, God is very gracious that he gives us spouses, but don't use your spouse like that. You should, what do they say? Treat your vessel honorably. And they say your vessel is actually talking about your wife. Paul says that every man needs to know how to use his vessel honorably. A lot of people think that verse is talking about their own body, but it's actually talking about the vessel that's been entrusted to them, their wife. Don't treat it dishonorably. Yeah, some people have it worse than others. Some people have the urge worse than others. If you have it really bad, then pray to God. Don't make the same mistake of thinking, oh, well, the gift of celibacy is just something you're either born with or not. And if I wasn't born with it, then I'm just going to have to give in all the time. Pray to God to give you that gift. And he will. God actually gives that gift. But the thing is, he only gives the gift to people who ask, and who ask it sincerely. You can't ask it in a sarcastic or insincere way. You have to genuinely desire it and change your mind so that you desire it. The problem is, with something like that, when you're praying for it, it's hard to actually desire it. You're like, do I actually want to be celibate? Do I want to miss out on all this pleasure? But the answer is, there are greater pleasures. Take pleasure in the other things in life, like your children. It's one of the greatest pleasures to have your little children. And ask your wife to dress a little more modestly so you don't feel inflamed by her all the time. If she is somebody who dresses immodestly, tell her to be modest in the house around you. Otherwise, that makes it so much more difficult. All right. It's a lot of talk about continence, but it's a good thing for us to talk about. You ever notice, guys, how many times in the scriptures it talks about wives being sisters? Cain and Abel marrying their sisters, and Abraham calling his wife sister, and Isaac calling his wife sister. And there are more instances of it, like in the Song of Solomon. I didn't include it, but Solomon calls his wife his sister, and lots more examples. But it's an image to us of how we as Christians in the new covenant ought to see our wives. We ought to treat them honorably and see them as co-heirs, even though they are subordinate to us and we are the image of Christ and they're that picture of the church who obeys Christ. We should see our wives the same way Christ sees his church, that her destiny is to be one flesh with him and to be divine like him in heaven, to be like him, to share his flesh, share his glory, and for them in heaven to actually be siblings under one Father in heaven. Not that, again, we will ever attain to Christ's eminent place as being the creator of the universe or being of the Trinity, but, we're not the Trinity, but nevertheless we will partake of his glory. As Peter says, we are partakers of the divine nature. So, if you know that's Christ's relationship with the church, then think of your wife the same way. Don't just think of her as your pleasure person. It's difficult, but it's doable. And you'll be more blessed for it too. When God sees people denying themselves and not just giving into their flesh all the time, he blesses them. And you'll be able to move up to higher degrees of holiness and wisdom too, if you're not a person who is always thinking about his pleasures. All right, I've been rambling. I'm gonna go to bed, guys. It's 10:07.
Good night, guys.
Wait, please.
Yes,
Luke, you
David.
still there?
I'm still here. What was it?
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt because it was good what you were talking about. But I had basically just quick questions about the Hippolytus quote that you showed me that you pulled up. It mentioned teachers that teach children worldly things. Is that a school teacher? Is that what that would be nowadays?
Yes, I think it would be like a grammar teacher, language teacher, that kind of thing. Math teacher.
Okay. And also it mentioned people that have animals in the Colosseum or something. Is that different from an animal trainer today? Or like, is it the same thing as someone who has animals in the circus?
Very different. The emphasis is
Okay.
in the killing and the pointless entertainment. Both of those things combine.
Okay.
We shouldn't be entertainers like that, and we shouldn't be killing. And somebody who's doing the chariot games or the wild animals is doing both, because the chariot races were not only foolish, vain entertainment, but also killing. People died at the chariot races. If you ever watch Ben-Hur, that was not an exaggeration. That's based on real accounts of people getting trampled and the chariots crashing and things. That's what they were looking forward to when people went to those games. And the
It
Wild
was
Beast
so
games are the same.
violent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very violent, Raheem.
It's interesting with both of those examples, like if you apply it like, spiritually in a sense, like, circumstances change where like today schools are like much more wicked and less like effective at doing what they're supposed to do than like how they used to. Like back then, the Greek liberal arts were much like they were more profitable compared to today. So I mean, still, it's like, well, and it's not a sin in itself to be a teacher, but it would be much better to be teaching like that system back then than the current system, of course, right? As opposed to then, like, the pet thing, right? Training animals. People don't, for the most part, don't use animals for killing others. So
Yes, it was
it's
the wild beasts, not just any beast,
yeah,
but something that's meant to attack. That's what they're forbidding.
yeah. But it's interesting how things change, but it's. I mean, a lot of things have gotten worse, but certain things like there isn't like obscene killing in public all the time, like for entertainment. Now it's fictionalized and people take enjoyment in it that way. But
Yep, well, you have two versions of it now. You have the movies, which are extremely gory, and of course video games, which are extremely gory, where you are not just watching it, you're participating in it yourself, which in some ways is worse than the gladiator games. It's it's desensitizing. You are teaching yourself that this is normal and good. Yep, and so that's wrong. But then there's another aspect to it, which is what was the other aspect? I don't know. That's how you know it's getting too late for me.
Adriana, when you said being a teacher is not a sin within of itself, were you talking about being a teacher in general, or like a public school specifically, or like a private school?
Well, in general, but see, I mean, you could apply it. Probably most public school positions are going to be like, there's a lot of wicked stuff being taught in public schools, right? But again, like in principle, it's not wrong, right? But even then, with the Greek schools, which were way better schools than our schools today, it's still saying like, better to stop and commit fully to Christ, or but you don't have to, like, so I think it really depends. I mean, Origin still taught grammar, right, and some other grammar or language or some of the other arts.
Yeah. Oh well, I was under the impression that it would be wrong to be a school teacher, just like at all, even if you weren't necessarily teaching something wicked, but something that was useful for the most part. I would have thought it's wrong because you're still being a part of that wicked institution. What would you say, Luke?
Well, yeah, today is much more wicked. I mean, it would be a lot harder to defend anyone in that position. I I'm hesitant to speak in absolutes with that. I don't know. I defer to the big brothers on this, but it could be a private teacher, right? And it could be for like an actual profitable subject.
No, yeah, that's different because you're not like with the school. But Luke, for being with the school, like, what would you say about that from what I said?
Well, it's not a sin to teach math or any of those things, those basic simple principles like grammar and language. Otherwise, they wouldn't allow it. Hippolytus wouldn't be allowing it. He wouldn't be saying that, this is the tradition of the church, that it'd be better if you didn't do this, but you're allowed to if you have no other occupation. It may just
Well,
be that.
oh,
Oh,
sorry, I didn't know you were finished. That's my fault.
well, I know, for instance, that Origen used to teach grammar. He had a bunch of grammar books that he ended up selling, and then he just went into full-time teaching the faith to people.
Well, it says Origen was a master of science too. He knew all the sciences.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Gregory says, Luke, that even afterwards, though, when he was older, he would teach anybody that was interested in learning both things about grammar and math.
Mm-hmm. So they're asking then, Nolan, and it's very nice to see you. Ben just left. We had a good call with him, but they're asking why then, why were they told that they should put it off? They should not teach secular, worldly knowledge, if possible.
Oh well, my question more specifically, I mean, of course, why would it be a sin to teach some basic grammar, or math, or other things that you need to know, things that are profitable, things that are edifying, things that have like an actual purpose. But my question specifically is if you're a part of some type of school system, like because private schools are wicked too, so like some type of private school, charter school, or especially a public school. And of course, if you're teaching something wicked, that would be sinful. You don't want to teach anything secular either. But if you were actually teaching something that was useful, but you were a part of like a school system, would that be a sin? Because you yourself aren't teaching something wicked, it's something that's useful, but you're still a part of the school system. So would that make it a sin or like just wrong?
Nolan, when you got here, I
Sorry,
thought,
my son was being bad. I had to leave. What was that? What was said?
I'm not gonna say all that again, Luke. I know you're tired.
I
You don't gotta answer my question. I know, like,
like
sometimes my questions be,
the public school environment today is very wicked, and there's a lot of like filthy speech and people dress immodestly and the culture and etc.
Yeah. Like, do we have to spell these things out? Yeah, Adriana, you're exactly right. I mean, like, it's a completely different. The school system is completely different than what like somebody like Origin was doing. Like, he'd be teaching people that stuff, but I mean, it's nothing like it is today at all. There's a completely different model in place.
You know, I guess like in itself, like someone that happens to be a teacher though, uh, even in this like, because again, it's much worse, right? But even in this wicked institution, them they're teaching English, right, or math or something. Um, like, I mean, I don't know that are they sinning by being a part of the institution? Would you
Yes,
say?
they should be a private tutor or something like that because that's really what Origin was more like a
Mm,
tutor of sorts is kind of how you would think of it in today's sort of speak.
mm,
Yeah, people typically back then they would hand their child roughly around the age of like 13 to 16. If the father didn't do all of the education after the child was roughly about 5 years old or so, when he was really starting to speak and move and becoming much more capable, everything before 5 years old would be with the mother. Then, like after 3 to 5 or whatever, 3 to 6, whatever age you want to say, by the time they're eating solid foods and talking pretty decently, they would be with dad. And then they'd either be with dad for the remainder until they're a full adult, or by the time that they were a teenager, their father would then hand them over to an educator. And that educator would give them a formal education. And it's a very different system than the one that we have today. Completely different.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a way better system. I gotta say, like, really, like, everyone should be teaching their own kids for like most of their upbringing. That's what it always should be. I mean, I came to that personally. Homeschool is superior. That's growing in popularity these days.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that's some there are always going to be these fads, and the fads can go on for maybe centuries or so. But I mean, at the end of the day, like like people will be like, oh, it's going to be really difficult to convince these women to start veiling themselves or something like that. And it's like I wouldn't be too worried about it. Women were it's like in their genetic code that they were their ancestors were veiling, like that's in them, that's a part of them, and that's a longer part of human history than the sort of things that we're doing now. And in the same respect, the reason that I say that, in the same respect, there's classic parenting. I mean, parents used to parent their children, and obviously there are going to be some things that parents aren't experts in, and they're going to need to get an expert to properly educate their child. And that's where that system comes into play, like I mentioned. Now, if your child really only just needs to work out in the field or something like that, then those would be those sorts of scenarios where the child wouldn't receive an education and he would just learn from his father how to tend to the field, and his father would be his sole educator.
Yeah.
But if it was going to be something a little bit more like just something that required a higher set of education, then he would receive that education from somebody qualified.
but you would
If his
say, Nolan, that
father.
the reason why they're discouraged from teaching the secular knowledge is because they would be teaching it in an environment where pagan things were taught as facts.
Oh yeah, certainly, certainly.
I think that was my main question. That was the only thing I can think of. He didn't spell that out. Hippolytus didn't spell that out, but I would just assume because these places are being taught in the midst of pagan philosophy, pagan
Right.
myths, and just a lot
No,
of immorality.
I highly doubt Hippolytus had any issue with like math and learning letters and the like. I mean, that'd be shocking. I highly doubt that.
Oh, Nolan, what you said answers my question. Thank you. And then also Adriana for helping to clarify my question. So even if they are teaching something useful, it would be sin for them to be a part of that institution because I mean, it's just like it's a wicked place and all the stuff that they're around. So if they were going to teach something useful, they can't be part of the school system. That would be prohibited, for a Christian. But they can do something such as private tutoring.
Was Nolan going to answer that one too?
I was just trying to make sure, like, I'm understanding what was said correctly.
I'm so
I think
sorry.
it's yeah. I think you got it. Like you apply the principle. If there so happened to be a moral school system that came to exist, like some people banded together and the culture was good and everybody was modest and it was like if it was a good moral system, it's like it wouldn't be a sin to be a part of that, right? But it's you have to. I mean, the vast majority of the cases, I don't know of any school system that is like that today, right? But yeah, apply
Yeah.
the principle.
Look, there was a quotation posted recently in the church files that says it's good to learn about physical sciences because it helps to understand symbolism. Remember that one?
Yeah, we've all experienced that firsthand. That's why we should share videos and things about creation.
Okay, it wasn't even that long ago. Let's see where did I post it.
Where have you been, Nolan? Did you have a good call with anybody?
No. Am I muted or can you hear me?
I can hear you.
No, but I heard that you had a nice call with Ben, huh? How was Ben?
How has Ben been?
Exactly.
How has Ben been? He's well. I think he enjoyed our Kahoot, and I think everybody else did too. It was quite enjoyable. I'm just finalizing the big thing for the big uh, Veil series. Just had to collect a few more quotes. Victor Ennis talks about face veiling.
Here we go.
In what?
In his commentary on Revelation. It's quite interesting.
Here, I posted Alexandria in the chat.
All right, let's see here. Clement says, "For scientific knowledge is necessary both for the training of the soul and for gravity of conduct, making the faithful more active and keen observers of things. For as there is no believing without elementary instruction, so neither is there comprehension without science."
I think you might have said Revelations.
I said Revelations.
Get him.
Give me
Yes,
a
get him,
break.
Raheem.
I've never said it and I never will.
I think I heard it too. Did you
It's
record that, Luke? I
recorded.
think
It's
we've got it on
recorded.
recording.
I'll send you a little clip. We'll test it. What second are we at? We're at 154.
Yeah, don't let him get away with it, Raheem.
154. I'll come back to you, Raheem. Don't worry. You'll never be able to catch me saying Revelations. Just one revelation. I'm literally reading the word revelation. Reading it in Greek here. It's going to be on the recording. I know how many revelations there are. It's just one. Anyway, Nolan, Victorinus, I forgot, talks about Moses' veil. And he says this word, apocalypse, applies specifically to removing a face veil. He says that. And the word apocalypse, of course, occurs in the Old Testament. Specifically when the priest says, he shall apocalypse the woman's head in front of the assembly. So, according to Victorinus, that is a face veil. And then I got this quote from Jerome saying the same thing. So that's nice. It's crazy how just the definition of words are covered up, switched out. Don't you guys think 2 hours is long enough? Should we go to bed?
I mean, we can keep going. I know you want your sleep though. You need it so you
You've
can
got a
be
big
able
day
to
ahead of you tomorrow.
instruct the catechumens. Oh, what you doing tomorrow? If you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, share it with us.
Oh boy, tomorrow.
Are you dropping John off tomorrow?
We already dropped off. We had the funniest time.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
And so is John going by himself, or he's with Elijah, or what?
All by himself. He's already.
All by himself.
He's
What's
already
John doing?
Going camping? Is he going camping?
He went camping. It was very enjoyable.
What exactly was the funny situation that happened?
It's just too funny. I can't even go over it.
Sounds like you're making stuff up, Luke.
I know, or I must. He just don't want to talk.
Aramis can attest. He's here with me. It was very funny. It's just funny when you're going camping and somebody has not really gone camping before and they're getting their bearings, you know. We were making basically it's just too funny, guys. I can't listen, Nathan won't be upset if I tell you no, I won't go over it. It's just fun. It's just fun times. He's our good boy and we love Nathan. No, we were just having a good time. Having a great time together. It's been 2 hours, guys. It's bedtime. You go to bed, I go to bed.
When is John coming back?
Well, who knows? I mean, it could be 3 days. He said he wanted to do a month, but who knows? That's not going to happen, just so you know.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, a month.
That'd be crazy if that happened.
He's gonna befriend a bear.
We can make peace with the animals.
I mean, people in Russia like wrestle with bears. Like,
Yeah.
Russians are.
Yeah, Aramis. Tell us about that, Aramis.
Sure,
is Aramis not here?
He's here, but he just won't speak. He claims not to be able to speak through his microphone.
He has no knowledge of bear wrestling.
Aramis is built differently, though. He's a superhuman, I think.
I think Luke told the story of when he did a 30-day fast and just ate right afterwards. Crazy.
Like 30-day food fast?
No, it wasn't that he ate after. It's that he was walking the entire time. That's why I say he's like built differently. He was going on constant walks still.
Was it 30 days?
40 days.
Oh
Wait,
no.
what? Was it like a oh, he had bread on it, or like no food?
We
And
should.
anyway, he was
You should.
walking a lot.
I believe he said it was a dry fast, if I remember
My
correctly.
point is, though, my
No,
point
there.
is that Aramis can like keep going compared to other people. Like I remember Xavier when he went to the camping, he went camping with Aramis, and they were getting a decent amount of food and stuff. But Xavier couldn't like walk too much. Now he blames it on the coronavirus, but I don't know. The whole thing is that I don't know. Just Aramis is not like anybody I've ever met before in terms of his stamina.
You know what
Nolan,
they say about Russians?
What's that, Luke?
you should give these compliments privately. You're gonna make Aramis all uncomfortable. You saying these things with him here. You know that
No,
no, he
I
wouldn't.
wasn't going into specifics about the fast or anything. I was just trying to say that he's he's malnourished and yet he was still thriving.
Yes, he was still thriving. It was a sight to behold.
Wait, I don't know who said it, but someone said they think it was a dry fast. There's no way he did a dry fast for 30 days.
Isaiah, we're not gonna talk about it. We're not going to be.
No, it wasn't dry fast. That's no, that's not
Wait, why
possible.
can't we? Or I won't even ask why we can't talk about it, but I respect that.
Remember that a person's praise is not from men, it's from God. And if you guys ever praise somebody for doing something, if somebody did some good deed, or if they fasted, and you go and just compliment them all the time, or if you go and tell other people, if you spread it around, did you know he did? You're taking away his credit, or you're tempting him also to seek credit from you guys. So let his credit be from God if he did anything. And you admire him, and you can speak about it with your brothers in private, but don't take away his credit from God, or tempt him to be prideful about something. Remember, guys, I have firsthand experience with this with my brother, who once did some ascetic things. He had an ascetic lifestyle, denied himself, and the pride destroyed him. So don't tempt other people.
I agree.
Yes, thank you, Luke, for the reminder. Because I wasn't even thinking about that.
Isaiah has had way too many reminders.
What you mean I had way too many reminders? Reminders about what?
Not to ask about how many reminders you have.
Nah, Brian, unmute yourself. You finna talk on mine and reminders like what? What's the last time I've been in a call with you?
It's big bedtime
I
now,
don't know.
Isaiah.
I don't pay attention.
We're going to bed.
Oh, okay. He's just talking, man. He's just talking.
I'm just talking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to start something.
Luke, real quick, what did you do today?
We're going to go over everything.
Okay.
Woke up.
I think he wrote a book. Didn't you write a book?
I write it every day, and I did today. I was working on that.
And it was supposed to be done by the time that Aramis returned. I think I read that somewhere.
It was spoken vocally. Here, I'll stop the recording for this part.